what did you find is the physical difference between being Flynn and then Flynn the AI?
A whole lot of physical differences. You know, there were really fun physical differences to be able to kind of excavate and figure out, and that was one of the big excitements for me. I think coming onto this role was being able to figure out what it means to be Flynn the Peripheral. And the physicality of even when Flynn is in her peripheral, the difference between her when she's in Clanton and in her human body versus her robot body. So yeah, you know, we had to figure out kind of what it looks like when the connection is cut, what it looks like when the connection comes through. You know, the AI, I really wanted her to feel pleasant while people were talking around her, because I felt like that was something that we, you know, specifically kind of referencing Westworld, which I figured people would reference Westworld a lot, being that Jonah and Lisa are involved in this and help create this. I really wanted to feel different than that. And for her, even when she's running on AI, to have this, like, just different aspect, I think, of a robot perspective, which was really fun to play with.
Have you ever done anything like that before?
No, I've never played a robot before. And it's kind of like, you know, it's like an actor's dream to be able to be yourself, but in multiple different realities of that self.
Yeah.
So it's really fun. Yeah.
How was it bringing something so technologically advanced to life?
It was, for me, it was great fun. One thing I expected to see, well, I didn't really have any expectations, but I kind of thought like we'd go into set and there'll be a lot of like green screen and special effects and stuff, and there are definitely special effects in the show, but a lot of the stuff is like in camera. Even things that like mechanical things, I thought they would just like put in at the end. That was all done in camera and on the set, and the design was great, production value was awesome. So it's been so much fun. I was really impressed with the team and like the execution of it all.
Yeah, like I was part of a scene where there was, pretty sure it's not a spoiler, an eyeball removal, and that, you know, it was amazing how, like Gary says, how little of that was VFX. Of course, some of it was, but so much of it we achieved actually there on set, and I think that just makes a difference, doesn't it? It helps bridge
difference.
the gap between reality and a new reality that we're trying to sort of reveal.
Yeah,
But it was
So
really good fun, wasn't it?
super fun.
How was that eyeball removing scene? Was it just as gruesome?
Well, I mean, the actual eyeball is so realistic, but I mean, Jack did a really good job because he had to actually have the instrument in his eye, so that, you know, we obviously have technical advisors who make sure that everything's absolutely safe. We're not torturing our actors here, a little bit. Yeah, but yeah, it was pretty gruesome to watch, but it's, you know, then you sort of nailing it when it's hard to actually watch it and do it. So
I love it. That's a juicy scene.
that was my first scene.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like first up, like eyeballs removed.
Right in there, exactly.
I thought the eyeball scene was the juicy scene.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
so
Definitely.
It's awesome. We watched at the screening last night. It was awesome. People just couldn't watch. Like,
People don't like eyes. Like, yeah, like don't do it.
Don't mess with the
Don't
eyes.
go there.
what was the hardest part about taking this story from book to screen?
You know, when adapting somebody as incredible and forward-thinking as William Gibson, the challenge is always simply to do his work justice, you know, and the breadth and scope of the worlds that he described in his novel are ambitious. And the characters are very complex. So the way I think to overcome those challenges is to cast people like Tania and to get the crew and the director Vincenzo that we got, and, you know, try to bring that world to life. And it's thanks to all their hard work that I feel like we succeeded.
Tania, your character Charisse is one of my favorites. She is like this delicious kind of villain.
Yes, that is the
almost,
word. Delicious.
Yeah, it's almost like she feasts on her villainy. How much of that was your interpretation versus directorial advice, or how much of that was you putting your stamp on that character?
I mean, I think it was just what's on the page, right? It's in the writing.
It is in the writing, and then it's in the acting, because I read the page and then I saw your performance, and it's next level.
Agreed.
She does rather enjoy herself.
I
mean, she takes 3 pages to do the deed. She's got to be enjoying it, because otherwise you would just. She has one line. Can I do a spoiler alert?
We won't be publishing anything until after.
Okay, great.
That is said.
She said there must be a simpler way to kill a girl.
Yes.
Just one human being, right? And that line, I think that encompasses her whole. That is Charisse in that one line. There's a simple way to do it, and I'm going to find the way that I will enjoy doing it. Right? Yeah, she is delicious. She's glorious.
Even just that little hint of Charisse that I just got. I'm like,
savors it, doesn't she?
Yes, she really does. And everything is with intention. Nothing, she talks and talks and talks and talks and talks and talks and talks. Go on, woman, get to the point. But actually, no words are wasted with her, right? Everything's very deliberate and very thought out. And she's obviously very someone who thinks quickly and on their feet, which I'm not. So it's nice to be able to pretend to be able to do that, at least.
So I want to start with the character of Lev. We are dealing with kind of multiversal worlds. And in this situation, Lev is not interested in any version of himself existing on any timeline but his own. Why is that? What is he so afraid of?
I think it's the greatest reflection of narcissism I've ever seen in a script. I mean, the idea that if there are multiple versions of yourself, that's a threat to your existence shows such insane control and insecurity at the same time. But it looks like it's a giant power play, but how fragile must you be to think that you are your own enemy? I love it. It's delicious. It's the most deliciously evil and oddly, dare I say, human sort of foible that I've ever read.
Obviously, you can't say, but does Lev have an ultimate goal at play?
I'll let you know when I find out. I think what I love about Lev is, from what I know, and literally, I can't say obviously the last few episodes, but Lev is pushing against the power struggle within the future, against the research institute, the technology that runs the world, and the Metropolitan Police that are trying to police the world, and then the klept, his own Russian oligarchy that are running the world through their control. And what I love about him is that he's not only pushing against the other powers, he's pushing against his own klept. That he's, is he fighting for control within his own empire? Is he fighting to end his empire? He surprises me, because every time you think he's going for one thing, he's got another little angle on there. And I can't wait to see where that goes. And, I secretly hope that it's as deliciously fun to play as I have so far.
Speaking of those challenges, Jack, there is a scene within the first episode where you're playing Burton, who's actually Flynn, but in Burton's AI body, which is pretty much just a mind trip even saying. How was that kind of getting into character for that?
It was great fun. That was one of the draws for me when I read the script, because it was an exercise in trust between, yourself and your co-star. And Chloë and I got on the phone and we talked about the scene before we shot it. And, I basically said, hey, tell me how you think this should be done, and I really want you to kind of inform how I do this. And that was great. It was just fun to get Chloe's notes about it, and then to sort of go out there and try and perform it in a way that was reflective of how she felt she would have done it herself. So that was good. It was great.
Was there anything surprising that you learned from kind of doing that?
I wouldn't say there was anything surprising that I learned from doing it, but it was just, it's kind of like exercising a new muscle when you're in the middle of the scene and you're trying to remember, what your co-star said about how they were going to do it, and how it's the kind of awareness that you have to have around it as you perform it is unique and a little bit different to, when you're just autonomously making your own decisions about the performance.
There's a running storyline with Flynn kind of becoming sick. She's got that thing with her hand, and then they talk about the virus localized to her eye. Can you inform us about anything about that? Can you tell us a little bit about what might be going on with that?
No way. That is like, no way. That is like the big old juicy pearl in the middle of the oyster. You know, that is like, it's exactly what is the pearl. You know, I also thank you for watching all 6 episodes, because it's so nice to talk to someone who has really informed questions on the show, to be honest. Just thank you. But yeah, you know, it is I don't think you are gonna expect what it is exactly. And the way that we figure it out and how we solve the problem is really wild. It's pretty drastic. So you're in store for a big finale.
So it's happening in the finale. That's exciting to know.
Yes.
In terms of your character, Jack, I feel like we've only just scratched the surface with to what extent he will go to for his loved ones. Are we going to see any of that unfiltered Burton towards the end?
I think so. You know, I think there are certainly moments where Flynn and Burton are, you know, their relationship is certainly challenged in certain ways. And I think that they have to be really adaptable. And I think there are moments where you see this guy, you know, particularly in one moment asking for just trust, you know, that he can just do what he needs to do in a given situation and to be trusted to take care of it and you know, make the right decisions. So yeah, I think towards the end of the series, you start seeing maybe a little bit of a different side of the guy, and it's great. It's really compelling. I think it's a very rich character, and you know, something that I'm excited to just mine, hopefully over subsequent seasons.
And speaking of that, just finally, what are your hopes for your characters going into a possible season 2?
I think that there's a really large possibility for the idea of these stubs, you know, and what does it look like to be able to use them? You know, what if they could be in different stubs at different times? You know, what does that really look like? So I think that there's just a huge way to build out the world, and to, I think, get them out of just London and Clanton and get us into other cities. You know, I really think that would be a fun thing to see too. What does the rest of the future world look like?
There is a moment where your character says to Alita, when she's looking, not Alita, you are Alita, when your character says to Flynn, when she's looking at the inverted pyramid, that she's giving her a great gift and I hope you're worthy. Mm-hmm. What can you tell us about those words?
Nothing. I can't really, well, without spoiling it, and I value my hands and feet, so I don't want anything, I don't want to keep all my limbs. But yeah, that's sort of a night. There's lots of lovely little nuggets like that along the way of sort of suggestions about what might be happening. And it's quite nice. Those little Easter eggs mean that you can, some people totally latch onto them and like notice them like yourself, and then other people it just goes straight over, and you might then in later episodes realise what she's talking about. But something significant obviously happened in that scene, and then it's sort of revealed later what that was.
Yeah, I do think it's definitely coming back to bite Flynn in the butt. Your character, Gary, this event that happens to him when he's 12 is how he somehow gets involved with Lev. But Lev doesn't seem to be on the same moral wavelength as Wilf himself. So why does he stay? What is it that keeps them so connected?
Again, survival. I think that's pretty much what it is. Not to give too much away, but the London that we're introduced to in the series is very different to the London, well, we think it's very different to the London we live in now. It's a much darker place. And yeah, like the elite in society, they pretty much run the show. And so Wilf has aligned himself with people who I think will help him survive, because there's so much crazy stuff going on. And
there's been a big, I mean, I think it's safe to say that something has happened quite clearly. It's sort of referred to in the early episodes between the 2032 and 2099, and that event has had a significant effect on everybody in 2099 '99. So a lot of what the characters are motivated by are that event and how it affected them.
Yep.
So I think that there's a lot of people's motivations are totally motivated by their experience of that.
Yeah.
I think that brings me to what I was going to ask you about what Alita's endgame is, because she seems to be one way, like the show seems to be setting her up to be like this ruthless person, but there seems to be more behind her. So what is her endgame?
Well, I can't reveal that, mainly because I don't know. I think the way that this is set up, just in terms of me as an actor, the character arc for this character has not been totally defined, because her arc does seem to definitely goes somewhere else. So, but in terms of me and playing it, I just don't think anybody's purely one thing. So finding different aspects of her personalities and where her belly was, where her vulnerability was kind of, I think sometimes when you have somebody who's got a certain level of power or they're quite maniacal about something that they're passionate about, and then you find their soft bits, it kind of makes the darker bits even darker somehow. Like when you bring light to something, it makes the darker side darker. So that was quite fun finding that. I mean, it was great. I mean, they really let us go for it, didn't they? In terms of like where we wanted to go with things. So.
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
When we first meet your character, she's referred to as a queen bee whose sting you don't want to feel. Yeah. And then later on, there's that really haunting scene with Grace and the bees, and when Charisse is complicit in her death because of the bees.
Yeah.
How much is there a meaningful connection with these bees? Is there more to this? What is it about the bees?
Well, if you think about it, we don't exist. Nothing exists without the bees, right? There's a real push at the moment to save the bees. You'll see it everywhere. Save the bees, save the bees, save the bees. Hotels are now building their own, I said at a hotel in Chipping Norton, and they have their own beehives. It's become a thing of very, very recently. Wouldn't you say in the last few years? But there is nothing. We do not have life. They are our secret miracles. Well, not so secret, but they are our little miracles.
I think it points to the fragility of the ecosystem in general.
Yeah.
Is it in some ways, not to put words in your mouth, but is it some ways to do with how Charisse controls some side of that ecosystem?
I mean, look, she's just trying to restore it. But yes, she does control it. But she's had, when she says that we've had two failed bees, 2 deaths. What's the word I'm looking for?
Mass extinctions.
Mass extinction of bees in just 5 years. Without it, and everything depends on that. And I think looking deeper at it, it's like everything in society, in our construct worldwide, globally, especially as the world has become smaller, we all depend on each other. So that little village out in outer Mongolia, right? What they're doing over there affects us over here and vice versa. We all depend on each other. We're not, we live in our own little bubble a lot of the time. And I think it's just sort of painting a bigger picture. That's my interpretation anyway.
Yeah, no, I think Charisse was just thinking about every angle, the slightest way in which one tiny, insignificant, say, bee colony could have ripple down effects over all of society in the course of human history. Her brain is one that processes these micro events as well as the macro events and tries to kind of puppeteer them all towards survival.
If I can ask, and Alexandra Billings says that she hopes her character inspires conversations around queerness. How has her character helped shape the Peripheral, and what conversations do you hope develop out of that?
Alexandra is the most talented actress, and I think, in a funny way, I don't think we mention explicitly sexuality or anything like that in the Peripheral, because what we're saying is we don't need to mention it. Like, this is the future. This is the world. Here we are. Everybody does their own thing. It's not that extraordinary a thing, because it should just be welcome and acknowledged and loved without all this fanfare without having to, insert yourself. Yeah. Yeah.
Like, it just is.
It's one of the, I hope it's one of the things that in the future we get to be more tolerant, and so that it isn't so difficult for everybody to have to, carve out just enough space to exist in this world, which kind of has a very strict format for, identity and existence right now. But I think it's getting better. And I think Alexandra is just an icon, because she's a great actress and she's doing her thing and kicking ass and inspiring people.
Yeah, I think this show does that beautifully, that it doesn't, there's no fanfares, but we have a few queer relationships. You have, a Black woman, right, running things in the year 2100, and it's never questioned. It's not a big hoo-ha. She just is. When we think about that now, if we were to put Charisse Newlin as running the fucking world now in 2022 on our screens, there would be talk about it, but in this world, it's just totally normal. And that's true representation, I think.
Yeah,
right?
I wish it were more in this world on, Fortune 500 companies had CEOs. Well, Charisse is pretty diabolical, but still, it would be good to have some representation. And I think it's also good to just normalize, I know even as a woman, when you see women, even when I see Tania's performance, the way in which Charisse embodies power and femininity and grace and that kind of delicious cocktail, this unapologetic, selfhood that's totally unique. To me, that's inspiring. Even just going by day to day, you see that kind of power on screen, and it's still something trickles through to society, right? And when you watch it, it kind of makes you stand a little taller and, make just a tiny bit more badass during the day.
And he's not a character who is easily shaken or intimidated, but he seems to be intimidated by the Met Police when Alexandra Billings' character comes in. Is there a history there that we need to know about?
Well, I think what they've done so brilliant, Gibson and Vincenzo and everyone is given huge stakes. So the Met Police have this ability to execute you on the spot, and they also have the ability to know when you're lying. Built-in lie detectors. So the stakes of being interviewed by the Met Police are life and death. And he knows that, and he knows how to play that game. And the same goes for Charisse Newlin, the head of the research institute, that she has the power of ultimate technology at the press of a button, and that there are people with far greater power than Lev, and the ability to wipe him out in a second, to annihilate him. Yeah. But it doesn't stop him trying to play them, and it doesn't stop him trying to get into the battle. And those are stakes that are great to push against.
Julian, your character also comes across the Met Police as well, and he seems very shaken himself. Does he have a history as well? Is there a hint to something that happened in his past that we can kind of glean from that scene?
I mean, yeah, I think there is a history there, and I mean exactly what JJ said. The Met at that time can know everything just from a simple touch of your hand. They can read everything into your past and your history, and I think there's things there that he'd rather not have people know about.
Anything you can give a little?
No, I don't think.
All right. Vincenzo, I think I might have figured this one out, but maybe you can help me out with this one. This is a world where it's all about transferring data information instead of physical information, and yet we get the futuristic weapon in the present. We get the futuristic invisible cars in the present as well. How is that possible? How are they transmitted there?
Well, you see, the amazing thing is that you can transmit the code and then you can print it in the present. I don't think I'm allowed to say, but there's a certain device that is printed in the present, but the information comes from future London. And I think that is really the genius of Gibson's conceit about time travel, is that matter is not being transferred. It's the most plausible version I've ever heard, along with the notion that when you do interact with the past, it immediately branches off into what he calls a stub, and it follows its own timeline, which does not interact with your present. and therefore we suffers none of the paradoxes that 99% of all time travel stories do.
This is a show that has like really beautiful visual scenes. Like there's that shootout on the bridge, that fight in the butcher shop, I think it was the exploding fish tank. Were there any scenes that weren't in the book that you added, and what impact did those scenes kind of have on the overall show?
Well, none of those scenes are in the book.
Really? They are gorgeous scenes.
That's all the creation of Scott Smith and his writing team. But I think that nonetheless, Scott has managed somehow to retain the essence of the book and to be very true to the themes and the characters in the book. And therefore, all of those sort of incidental things, while they might depart from what's on the page, still somehow feel like they remain true to the original Gibson vision. This
is also, like I've said, it's a multiversal kind of story. We've had the multiverse within Marvel several times. We've had the multiverse in Everything Everywhere All at Once. Now the Peripheral is touching on that too. What is it, do you think, that it is about the multiverse and the idea of the future that is so appealing to us now?
Well, I think it's the ultimate escapism. I think we're in a very scary time. And I think if you ever look at the history of media and sci-fi and horror maybe in that genre, is that they come around in very frightening times of history. And we are there again now. What's different about this multiverse is that the multiverse is, say, in the Marvel are completely fantastical. So, scientific basis for it, as it were. But what Gibson has done is, this is the first time where you don't have to study quantum physics to go, oh, that makes sense. Oh, so you can't actually physically time travel yourself. What you can is time travel digital information. You can send that digital information to a different time where then they can use it and utilize it. And that's the premise of this, of how time travel and the multi-times, multi-stubs works in this, is that I know nothing about quantum physics, and yet I can go, oh, okay, I get it. That makes sense. That's what's brilliant about this, and different to fantastical ideas of multiverses, which are brilliant in their own way, but it's a different conceit.
And I wonder even if it's also that we kind of live in a multiverse anyway at this point. Like, we're using these machines to create worlds that we can enter that are parallel to our own, and that it's somewhat in a subconscious way reflective of our just daily reality in the 21st century. It's a weird time. Like, I think people are, I think the technology and culture is evolving in a way that is sort of just beyond our grasp. Like, we always seem to be playing, or I'm just talking about myself, I always seem to be playing catch up with what's going on in the world, trying to understand it. There's so much paradox in our daily existence. And inevitably, when science fiction is great, it really is commenting on the moment. It's actually not about the future, it's about our present. And I do feel like maybe if The Peripheral had come out 5 years ago, it might not resonate with you because that was a different time. But now it just seems to be like so of the moment. And once again, it's a credit to William Gibson, who wrote the book 8 years ago.
And all of you that put all the work and effort into it as well. It's so well crafted. To see it visually on screen, it's excellent. Do you have any ideas for a season 2 mapped out? Have you had that bouncing around in your head at the moment?
That is the purview of Scott Smith, who unfortunately is not with us right now, but who is the creator and writer of the series, and Lisa and Jonah. And it is being worked upon. Yes, I'm well aware of that. But I think they've sort of set a course with the first season, and then it will sort of continue to branch off in that direction. I don't think there'll probably be elements of the book that will be drawn in. I'm just guessing, by the way, they'll be drawn into the second season, but I think they've sort of established their own stub, as it were, and they're following that to its logical conclusion.
I guess so. It would be fun. I feel like so many things were set up. It'd be a shame not to continue.
Yeah, we've got to find out more about that world, right? And how it...
I mean, it's a big setup. I mean,
like,
this whole season's a bit...
We'll just tease you with that, but there's definitely no more. Creatively spent.
I'm only 6 episodes in, and I'm like, where's the rest? Where's the rest? Where's the rest? So it's pretty good. Is there anything about the finale that you think will surprise and shock people?
That's going to surprise and shock me,
for
because
sure.
I haven't seen it. and you know there was a lot of restructuring and rewriting and reshooting, not just a little bit. Was one of us. We always do reshoots. It's not a big deal to say we did reshoots, but it was one of the rare times where the reshoots weren't to fix problems; they were to make things enhance it and even better. And like there was some new great ideas. I got a couple of amazing scenes. I thought, oh wow, you know, that's something. It wasn't like we did the scene bad, so we had to reshoot it. It was there was adding more, and it felt very exciting. And I know the ending got a bit of that, so I can't wait because it's the only bit that I haven't read. So I can't wait.
What are your hopes for your characters going forward into a possible season 2?
I want to find out what else. Yeah. We were just having a little coffee break, and you know, we shot this a year ago. We were so into the show that we were already going, what is Lev's hold on Aussie? What are they doing? Why, you know? And I want to see what that relationship is. I want to see what Lev's relationship with the Klept is. What's his goal with the Klept? Because I can see the goal with the others. What's the internal power struggle? And then I've got some very naughty, delicious ideas, which I won't divulge because it might get kiboshed by the network.